Everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Senior Forum organized by the Upper School Math Circle of BISV. My name is Anna and I'm a sophomore at BASIS. On behalf of the leadership team of the Math Circle, I will be interviewing two immensely talented and hardworking BISV seniors about their middle school and high school experiences, specifically in mathematics and other STEM-related fields before they head off to the next chapter in their life, which will be college. So please welcome Sidhant and Larry. Um, will you two first introduce yourselves to the audience?
You want to start, Larry?
Okay, I can start, I guess. I'm Larry. I'm a senior at BISV. I am going to attend MIT this fall. Um, in terms of my, I guess, math or STEM related accomplishments throughout high school, I've done a lot of Olympiads such as math, computer science, physics, and in math, I am a two-time USAMO qualifier, two-time JMO qualifier, and this year I believe I got bronze on USAMO. And for USACO, I am a three-time camper. I also am a two-time USAFO honorable mention. So, yeah.
Um, I'm Sidhant. I'm going to be studying physics and probably math at Princeton in the fall. Um, and for me, in terms of competitions, I also did a few Olympiads. I did Amy 3 times. I have 2 bronze medals at USAFO. Um, and I've done other competitions as well throughout high school, things like Science Bowl and Science Olympiad, with a few pretty good results in Science Bowl, such as winning MIT once and getting top 3 in Berkeley as well.
Okay, thank you for those introductions. So, as for how this session is going to work logistically, feel free to drop any other questions you have in direct messages to me or in the Zoom Q&A feature. After the seniors have answered our pre-prepared questions, they'll be open to questions from the audience. Okay, so now let's get started. Our first question is, how long have you been doing competition math and what are your general math-related achievements?
Okay, so I guess I can start. I started doing competition math in about fifth grade, so that's means about 8 years so far. Um, and I guess in terms of like how much time I've spent, I haven't actually spent too much time. Like it's been off and on. There have been points where I've been spending, like 2, 3, 4 hours a day, but there are also times when I go a long time without practicing. It's just I guess something that I think it's just something that like if you're I guess somewhat passionate about it and you just keep it up for a really long period of time, you'll eventually become really good at it. And yeah.
Um, I started taking competition math seriously relatively late compared to most other people who do. I think I um, started like probably in high school only. Um, I've never like consistently spent a super large amount of time on competitive math. I think the first time I qualified for Amy, I was fairly surprised and I grinded a lot of competition math for like 3 weeks or something, which is probably the most consecutive amount of time I've spent in competition math. Um, but even when I'm sort of in like droughts of doing math and stuff, I still come back to like solving old Amy problems or AMC problems sometimes just because they're like a fun way to blow off steam. Well-written problems can be, you know, fun to work on if you're bored.
Okay, our next question is, what is some advice and some resources you used while preparing for math contests?
Okay. I guess in terms of resources, there are a lot of really great resources that exist in general across like the online resources and whatever. Like for example, AOPS has a lot of great resources. You can find all past AMC, AME stuff on there, and um, there are a lot of great people you can talk to and get to know and practice together on those websites. There are also lots of books that are really good for this, and I mean there are also like summer camps like Alpha Star and whatnot that are also very helpful. So there are lots of resources that are available. It's just up to you to practice and utilize them.
Yeah, and I think which resources you use depends a lot on like what kind of person you are. Like, if you're like a very motivated student and like you enjoy math a lot, I would suggest like getting books is probably by far the best way to learn like competitive math and stuff. If you think you need like more guidance or something, I know a lot of these services like AOPS and AlphaStar offer courses too. So, if you're less self-motivated, this can also be like a really useful resource as well. But I think if you're motivated enough, books and past problems are like probably the most dense, efficient way to get good at this sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, I agree a lot with your points. Describe your experiences with both competition and non-competition math, like higher math, and also BISV school math.
Um, in terms of, I guess, competition math, I mean, it is a really long process. There are going to be moments where you'll feel like you'll get stuck, but as long as you consistently practice, or at least have some sort of a sustained effort of like continuing to do problems, you will eventually get over that hump. Um, but I mean, in terms of like how competition math has impacted like school math, I guess. It really does help a lot with your problem solving and reasoning abilities. Like if you do a lot of competition math, you'll find that actually the math at basis or like the AP level math or even the post AP stuff becomes quite a bit easier for you.
Recording in progress.
And so that is I don't know, it's a very nice benefit of doing competition math.
Yeah, I think between like competitive math, higher math, and like the math you do for school at BISV, there's they're definitely very different in flavor. I agree that I think competitive math is like out of these three is probably the one with like the lowest barriers to entry. It's the one that requires you to know the least material and yet have the most like problem solving ability, which like Larry said is really useful for getting into things like higher math later on or getting into other STEM fields. I think people who are really good at competitive math in middle school and high school end up being pretty successful at any sort of analytic problem solving kind of field they want to go into later. Um, as for like experiences in higher math, I think people tend to get more interested in this like later towards like the end of high school. Um, as you know, math competitions aren't as prevalent like post high school in college. Um, and I would definitely recommend like later in uh high school branching out a little bit from things that you normally study in competitive math, like combinatorics, basic geometry and things like that, and studying things like linear algebra, multivariable calculus, tensors, things like this, because they'll be really useful in the fields that you're hopefully going to end up in.
Okay, our next question is, what are your future career plans and where does math fit in it? Which is a good segue from Sidhant's answer.
Yeah, so my answer is going to be very different from Sidhant's. So I am planning to do something along the lines of computer science and math. Probably like I'm not completely sure yet, but probably I'll like dabble in like AI and that kind of thing. But in terms of how like math can help me in my career, it's that like A lot of the things that you learn from doing math, like your problem solving ability and I mean, even the raw mathematical skills that you get, they all help translate whatever like STEM field you're doing. So, for example, if you're doing computer science and you're writing code, well, a lot of the math that you learn from doing competition math, like the combinatorics or the number theory, that can all help you in solving a lot of your computer science problems. And so math is really kind of like a foundation and something that you should, I guess, at least be pretty solid at. And yeah, it can help you in a lot of different careers going forward.
Yeah. So my answer is somewhat different. I've always been interested in being a theoretical physicist, and at least so far I haven't really shown any signs of switching from that. Theoretical physics obviously requires a lot of math, and a lot of problem solving skills. And so yeah, things like, like my 3 week long grind in ninth grade of competitive math really helped me develop a lot of the problem solving skills that you need in order to understand more complicated physical systems and things like that. Um, yeah, in general, I think math is just super useful to study in middle and high school, and maybe the most useful thing to study in middle and high school, just because of like how versatile it is. If you get really, really good at math in high school, you can go into computer science and AI, you can go into theoretical physics, you can go into any one of these really like analytical problem solving skill based fields and do just fine.
Wow, very interesting. Okay, one question we have, which is very similar to the one in the Q&A, is how do you balance school with your other activities? Like, do you have any general advice for high schoolers and middle schools in time management, clubs to join, and whatnot?
So personally, I'm not the greatest at managing my time, but um, for one, I think that like doing this like competitions or um or like any sort of Olympiads like computer science, math, these competitions, they all build on top of each other. And so like getting better at doing math is also going to help you in computer science or help you in physics. And so being able to um, just have your work be, useful in a lot of different areas is very helpful, especially in managing time. In terms of clubs, I mean, a lot of clubs at basis have a gear towards helping you at Olympiads. So you can meet other people at basis who are willing to help you. Like, for example, this club, Math Circle, has a lot of people who will also be interested in Olympiads and whatnot. The physics equivalent would be Physics Circle, and I guess the computer science equivalent would be the Art of Computer Algorithms Club. But in general, this kind of like joining clubs where you can meet people who are also interested in the same things as you are is going to help you manage your time very well. In terms of like how much time I actually spent on extracurriculars versus on school, it really depends. Like, of course, you got to finish all of your schoolwork and everything. And once you finish that, depending on how much time you have left, you can allocate that to whatever you want. Some of it maybe to enjoyment, like personal enjoyment, but uh, some of it should also go to trying to uh, like practice and improve your skills.
Yeah, I'm also notoriously not the best at managing my time. Um, but I guess like one of the things that helps a lot, like Larry said, is having things that go towards sort of the time that you spend for multiple things. So what I mean by that is like, for example, if you do a lot of studying for competitive math, you're not likely to have to study on top of that very much for, say, your pre-calculus class or something, right? Because you'll already have studied that stuff and you'll already know that stuff. So having like overlapping activities and stuff kind of allows you to spend the time cost for multiple different activities, which can kind of help you be quite efficient. Um, in general, yeah, obviously, like the the baseline of your time is going to be like, the whatever, 6 to 8 hours or whatever you spend in school, plus the time you have to work on your homework. And you can allot the rest of your time accordingly. Um, but yeah, I think one of the main things is try to do activities and stuff that like somewhat overlap so that you can be a little bit more like versatile with your time.
I guess I should also add that like you should be doing activities that you are genuinely interested in. Like if an activity is like the worst thing in the world, first of all, you're not going to be good at it, and you're also going to have a horrible time while you're doing it. So try to participate in activities that you actually somewhat enjoy. I mean, obviously they don't have to be like you don't have to enjoy them as much as like playing video games or whatnot, but at least partake in activities that you somewhat enjoy and that can also drastically help with your time management.
Yeah, when it comes towards spending time that can be allotted towards like two or more activities, um, a great way to do this is to spend time that can be allotted towards both studying and pleasure. If you find something that you really enjoy, or you find like a particular like textbook that you like really, really like solving problems from, um, you're not going to have to like expend a lot of mental energy and fatigue doing this. If anything, you might recover mental energy from doing this activity that you enjoy, which is also productive.
Okay, let's get through some of these Q&A questions. Have you compromised any of your interests or hobbies for competition math or like other competitions?
So there have definitely been like some things that I've wanted to do that maybe I didn't have time for because of competitions. But in general, everything like whichever activities you end up choosing to do, it's all a choice of like whether you actually want to do it. Versus, like it's all a choice, like a balance between how much you want to do it and how you're good at it. And you also have to balance your time and everything. And so I guess in a way I have sacrificed some other activities, but like that also kind of just means I prefer to do competitions over doing those other activities. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was in middle school, I used to read a lot. Like I read probably a full book every week, and now I read maybe a quarter of that, or a third of that. So there are definitely things that I used to do much more when I was younger that I definitely enjoyed that have kind of slipped away. But this has always felt like a kind of organic process. It's not like I sat down with like a piece of paper or a notebook and said, okay, I need to spend X time on competitive math, so what do I sacrifice from my life? It's just I look at some math problems, or I look at, physics problems or whatever I want to spend my time on, and I think this is worth spending time on, and then I spend time on it. And whatever else is sort of towards the bottom of my priority list will sort of fall off the bottom. But that's just sort of natural in life. I've never felt like I've had to endure some sort of tremendous sacrifice or anything.
Another question is, how do you balance your time on the two or more competitions? Like both of you have done like math and another subject. Like how do you balance your time for that?
Um, so for me, a lot of it is like, as I said before, like kind of double dipping where doing math can definitely help with CS and with physics, and similarly doing CS can help with math. But there are definitely specific skill sets within each thing that will be trained more than another. And like, I guess my answer to that is just what are you interested in? And if you're interested in CS a lot, then just do a bunch of CS. If you're interested in physics, you can practice a lot of physics problems. And um, I guess just do what you're very interested in. And um, your, I guess, mind and your performance will reward you for that.
Yeah, I think honestly, this like double dipping is very, very underrated. And in general, not just double dipping, but just like establishing a strong foundation. Again, like if you get the basic math and stuff down, you'll find that if you want to try physics Olympiads, for example, all you really need to do are learn some basic equations, some basic ideas, and apply them. If you want to do chemistry, again, you learn some basic equations, some basic ideas, and you apply them. For computer science, you study the correct algorithms and things like that, and then you apply them. It's there's a different extent for different subjects to which this is feasible. Of course, for like something like biology, it's not at all feasible. But in general, I think um, as long as you have like a strong foundation of like understanding, it's not terribly difficult to build like application specific understanding on top of that.
Yeah, I agree much with your answers. How do you take breaks or relax?
So, um, kind of like it's just like when you take breaks and or like relax, you just want to like um I guess ease yourself like if you're a little I mean, to be honest, I'm not the best example for this, but if you're a little tired or whatnot, you can just like s play a little bit of like whatever video game, but just make sure you don't spend too much time on it or watch YouTube or whatever. Um and I think it's important that you have some breaks, like some times where you're not actively working on something. And I mean, it can be anything that you want to do. And as long as you're deriving enjoyment and you're de-stressing, I guess, from it, then it'll be it'll be all right.
Yeah, I think it's important that like you should probably spend like the vast majority of your time, like close to 100% of your time, excluding sleep, either doing something like productive and useful in building skills, or doing something that de-stresses you and relaxes you and makes makes that productive time like more productive. Um, uh, I also think again, finding ways to overlap this is really important, I think. Like it shouldn't really be the case that all the time you're spending building skills and like practicing math or whatever it is you're practicing. I don't think it should be the case that all of this time is time that you feel like you're being fatigued and that like you're being put under stress. If you can find a way to like gamify your studying or to like derive some sort of enjoyment out of that, to find like let's say writing your own math problem and like you're really, really curious as to what the answer is, you can sink like 2 hours trying to solve this problem that you wrote and you both study math, but it's not like you're fatiguing yourself. If anything, you're sort of relaxing yourself. So I think this is pretty important. Studying with other people can also be fun because like, this is sort of a social outlet and humans are pretty social. So you're both getting work done, you're both learning things, but you're also enjoying yourself and sort of decompressing in some sense.
Okay, for the second question, I feel like does anyone want to elaborate on what all extracurricular activities did you have in middle and high school?
Okay, so I guess I mean if the question is asking for college profile, like I don't want to go that in depth about like exactly what I did to apply for college, but I did a lot of Olympiads, and that was like a large part of my extracurriculars. I also really enjoy writing problems. So, for example, we had our own, I guess, basis competition called BIMCT this year. I highly encourage everyone to join, but we spent a lot of time writing problems for that and organizing the logistics and everything. I also wrote problems for a lot of different competitions like Code Forces or serial codes and stuff like that. Um, I also was part of a few clubs, like the Art of Computer Algorithms Club, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the two things I brought up at the beginning were Olympiads and Science Bowl, and I think the reason why these two in particular are good to bring up is because they're very different in flavor, right? One of them is you sit down, you take a 3 hour test, and then like a month later you get a medal or a score or a qualification or whatever. And then the other one is like sets of like 20-minute matches where you're trying to outbuzz people in like 5 seconds. I think it's useful to get like activities that feel different to sort of avoid burnout. I mean, of course, lots of Olympiads and stuff are fun, but you should do things that maybe you find a little bit more fun. I highly encourage Science Bowl. It's very fun. Things like Quiz Bowl as well, also people have a lot of fun with. Um, yeah, I think just sort of diversifying the kinds of things you can do can make your days feel like not monotonous. Besides that, yeah, I'm also not going to go into like depth about like college profile and stuff, but just in general, like do the things you're interested in. Like if there are like specific programs that like, I don't know, you get emails about or whatever from like because of your affiliations with math competitions or whatever, like if some of them look interesting, like consider joining them. The main thing I would stress is like prioritize like the quality of your participation over the quantity. Like join for every like club or like summer program or whatever you join. You should make sure that you're doing it not just for like another like resume item, but because firstly because you like you derive a lot of enjoyment or value out of it, and secondly because you intend to participate, like maybe like help other people with it if you're like becoming more of a senior member, really take an active stance and like trying to gain value from the activity and also make the activity better.
Okay, good insights. So this first question about do you need to get good grades on competitions to get into a good college or university? I feel like our seniors are not college admission officers, so they probably don't know the answer to this, but it could be a factor. Okay, so our next question is probably to Larry. What do you do if AI replaces CS by the time you apply for colleges and jobs?
Um, okay, so this is kind of a hard question to answer, in part because um well, I don't think that's going to happen necessarily right now. But also it's like it really depends on like how like the AI will work. Like if the AI is doing everything for us, then there's no point for anyone to do anything. But if you are good at CS and you have strong computer science fundamentals, it is going to be easier for you to understand AI and be able to use AI to do a lot of other things. And so it shouldn't be necessarily a worry that AI is going to replace you. Rather, it should be more like an opportunity to be able to use a new tool that you have to be able to access, you know, other, I guess, potential in life.
I'd also like to add that like to the extent that which AI would replace programmers and stuff in the near future, it really seems like at least the beginning of this would only be things like, the code monkeys and stuff. Like, the people who are just taking boilerplate code, like web development stuff or like machine learning stuff from existing websites or sources and sort of applying them to a particular thing. Which is why I really think that if you do go into studying computer science, you should avoid the trap of like just doing the really popular boilerplate code monkey sort of stuff and really focus on like understanding like the the math and the algorithmic structure behind a lot of computer science and stuff. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess yeah, to Sidon's point, like if you want to do this kind of like AI sort of research kind of thing, you want to make sure you understand how AI works and you want to actively think about how you can try to modify or improve it rather than just apply something that someone else did to a new thing. Um, and yeah.
And this is where the higher math comes in. Take linear algebra, or else don't study AI.
And different. Wait, no, multivariable calculus.
Backpropagation.
Yes.
The next question is, how did you practice for coding? Could you please give resources for coding?
Okay, so there are a lot of resources for practicing coding. First of all, there's quite a few websites that are really good for just learning the basics of coding. So, like usacode.guide is really good for this. Um, and if you're a little more advanced, another really good website is CP-algorithms. And then another thing that's really, really helpful is if you look for the Competitive Programmer's Handbook, that also has a lot of really good beginner level stuff and even some more advanced level material as well. So these are some like, I guess, things that you can get started with. In terms of problems, I mean, usaco.org has all the past USACO problems if you want to try them. But also, if those are not enough for you, there are also problems on websites like Codeforces, AtCoder, um, oj.uz, and stuff like that, where there's an endless supply of these problems that all are like relatively high quality. They're vetted by a lot of people, and you can use them to practice a lot. So, yeah.
I I don't really practice coding, so I couldn't tell you. I hear people talk about leak code, but I have no sense of perspective on whether or not it's good or bad.
Leak code is also pretty good, but I think leak code is more geared towards interview preparation rather than actual understanding of theoretical computer science. And so I think if you want to learn, you should go to websites like usaco.guide or Competitive Programmer's Handbook. But if you want to practice, I guess you can use LeetCode. You can also use CSS, and you can also use USACO and Codeforces and those kinds of things.
Okay, wait, there's this question. Is CSCS .5/book the competitive programmer's handbook at the bottom?
Uh, yes, I believe that is the Competitive Programmer's Handbook. Yes. So it has a lot of really beginner level algorithmic stuff, but it also has some more advanced stuff. So it's really great for you to keep referencing when you encounter new algorithms and stuff like that. So yeah.
Can you talk about the pros and cons for AOPS and Alpha Star?
Okay. AOPS generally has better quality control. Yeah, I guess AOPS generally has better quality control in terms of like the classes that they offer. So, like Woot or other AOPS classes that they offer have better quality control. Although AOPS requires you to be a lot more self-motivated, whereas Alpha Star allows you to be a little less self-motivated. They'll help motivate you as well. And so they're kind of different in ways like AOPS allows you to have this bank of problems that you can keep doing and has classes where there's a lot of practice problems that you're never going to finish. So it's a lot of practice that you can get and a lot of learning that you can get if you are self-motivated. But Alpha Star, it's like a summer camp. You can meet new people there and um, you will also get the experience of like their instructors are usually campers in different fields, so like moppers, campers, physics campers, or if they're like foreign, they're probably going to be IOI, IMO, IFO medalists. So they're going to have their experience that they can share with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I never used AOPS or AlphaStar much. But from what I gather, just the only thing that I would add to what Larry said is that I believe that AOPS, at least for some people, also serves as like kind of a community for problem solvers. I know a lot of people who've like made friends or whatever on AOPS and like discuss problems and things like that on AOPS. So if that's also something that you're interested in, then that's also maybe worth considering.
Okay. How much do you think you know about math?
Okay, this is a very, very difficult problem to answer because it really depends. Um, it depends on like, I mean, I would say I like am pretty knowledgeable about math, like better than most people, but there are so many like branches of math, so many branches of like, I guess STEM in general that like I've probably never seen before and probably I'll never encounter in my entire life. And so it's really hard to answer this question. Like in terms of like the space of mathematics, what I know is the equivalent of nothing, but um compared to I guess the average person, I guess I am pretty knowledgeable about math.
I mean, yeah, I was also thinking of it, at least at first, as in what fraction of the space of mathematics do you understand? I mean, it depends on how you count, right? If you count mathematics as the space of true statements, then the fraction of that that I know off the top of my head is zero. Um, I think, or at least infinitesimal. I think a better way to count this is like if someone were to give you, let's say, a math paper or a math problem or a math topic, and give you, let's say, a month, um, how well equipped do you feel that you could figure out what that stuff is saying, um, within that month or whatever? In this respect, I think I'm pretty good. I think I have strong enough foundation to be able to understand any particular branch of math given like a few weeks or something. But yeah, I think this is maybe a better way to measure it.
How did you get into STEM competitions? Did your parents force you initially and then you liked them? Or did you have a great teacher or coach that introduced you to them? Or did you find out about them all on your own?
So this question, I know a lot of my, or I guess a lot of the friends that I have that are doing competitions are going to have different answers. But I think the most common answer amongst them is probably that our parents, I guess, didn't exactly force us, but um like encouraged us to do it or said it was a great opportunity and we looked into it and I don't know, started to enjoy it a little bit. Um I think you can also a lot of people also I know are completely self-taught. They learned everything from like from the ground up um and a lot of people are like that. Um but yeah, it really depends on the case. For me, um what happened was a couple of our parents like our parents had a friend group and a couple of them wanted to form a math team and they basically asked around for people who were interested in signing up and uh I signed up just I don't know because I uh kind of liked it and then from then on I started learning a lot about it and I kind of enjoyed it so yeah.
My parents have no clue what an Olympiad is. Um, so I was definitely not forced initially by my parents. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I think I don't know when I first came to basis, like it was very different from like the public elementary school I used to go to, where nobody cared about science or anything, and so there were all these options for like clubs and stuff, and so I just basically just started signing up for everything I saw, um, and that included things like Science Olympiad when I was in like seventh grade, I think. That included things like math competitions and stuff. Like I said, the first time I felt like actually motivated to study any competitive math is when I somehow accidentally qualified for Amy through AMC 10, which I was not really expecting that year at all. Um, so yeah, I just sort of accidentally stumbled onto it. I definitely had teachers that like pushed me to like because I like talked a bunch in class and seemed very interested that like pushed me into doing these things. I remember the first reason I joined Science Bowl was because it was ostensibly a competition all about interrupting the person asking you the question. And so my chemistry teacher, Dr. B, insisted that I should try and do it. So I think these opportunities just sort of come at you sometimes.
Any specific topics you recommend focusing on for math competitions?
Okay, so I'd assume the topics you're referencing are the four, I guess, main ones: algebra, combinatorics, number theory, and geometry. Um, Personally, I've always been really bad at geometry. And I've never really like, I guess, I've never really took the effort to become good and never really became good at it. Um, but I I personally think that the few things that give you the most, I guess, space for like developing your problem solving is probably like either combinatorics or algebra. Um, and they're the most applicable to um other competitions like CS and physics. But it is funny because I was talking to someone that he's a professor at CMU, and he said that um geometry people are actually the people that are the most successful out of the math people. And the reason for this is because geometry forces you to write down and express what you are thinking and what you're doing, and being able to write it down in a clear way for not only yourself, but for other people to view. And that skill set that is pretty unique to geometry is something that is very valuable in the modern workspace. So all of the topics are somewhat important, but I guess you should keep in mind that, I guess, in terms of practicality, algebra and combinatorics have the most applications in other subjects, but geometry trains a very different skill set that is also very important.
If Larry is bad at geometry, I don't know what I am. But um, yeah, I think, well, first of all, if you want to do well at math competitions, you should probably be at least like a little bit universal, like at least be able to solve like, um, the relatively standard problems in algebra, number theory, geometry, combinatorics. I would agree that algebra and to a lesser extent combinatorics are definitely the most like applicable outside math competitions. Um, So, I mean, if we're talking about math competition specifically, I think all four are like important for your success. Although you might want to find the one that like you find the easiest or that comes the most naturally to you and study that one a lot more. In terms of outside of math competitions, if you're studying something like computer science, both algebra and combinatorics are really, really useful. Like discrete math comes up a lot. If you're studying something like physics, they're both also very useful, but I would say algebra is like probably by far the most useful outside of math competitions.
Okay, what do you find the most beautiful and intriguing part of math?
This is actually kind of hard. There are a lot of really cool, I guess, things in math that um, are really neat. I, I'm not actually sure which one I would consider like the most beautiful that I've ever seen, I guess. Um, so I don't know. Maybe we can come back to this question later and I'll think of something.
Feel like I should have an answer to this question because I get asked it so often, or some variation of it. What's your favorite theorem? What's your favorite proof? What's the coolest branch of math? I don't know. I agree with Larry. It's like one of these questions, like, what's your favorite movie or something? Like, there's a lot of things that are cool for very different reasons. Um, uh, I tend to gravitate either towards things that look really, really complicated, but then when you actually try to do them, some particular property or symmetry or something makes them somehow really, really clean or really simple. One of my favorite examples of this is something, it's not exactly in math, although it's like in theoretical physics called Noether's theorem, which says that if you if you have some sort of a symmetry in your system, like you can move things around or something, and you don't change the equations that describe it, you have some sort of associated conserved quantity. So this is like an example of the kind of thing I find really useful. You can use some clever symmetry or property of the system to make something that looks very complicated, very, very simple.
Would you recommend diversifying your extracurriculars or focusing on your major for extracurriculars?
Um, so to be honest, it would be very hard for you to already know what major you are going to do. Um, Even if you are like a junior in high school, it would be very hard for you to know exactly what major you're going to do. So I'd recommend exploring things that interest you. Um, there are a lot of things that um, you might be interested in, and you'll never know if you're really good at them or whatever if you don't try it. So I'd recommend like try a lot of different things that interest you, and then when some of them don't work out, that's all right. You have some other things, and through this you can see what you're actually truly interested in doing with the rest of your life, and not like, oh, my dad wants me to do computer science, then I'll do computer science. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty common and pretty good piece of advice. Like start quite broad and then sort of cull based on what you find boring versus what you find interesting. So maybe in early middle school, just take just sign up for things that you see that are like maybe not huge time commitments, and then just sort of gauge with your own personal like, valuometer what you find interesting and what you don't. Um, yeah, I think this is probably the best advice. When it comes towards like later towards high school and stuff, I would probably recommend maybe not diversifying as much just because like you just have finite time, and it's more worthwhile doing the few things you're doing well. But I definitely don't think at any point that you should sacrifice like extracurriculars that are both productive and fun just because they aren't directly tied to job opportunities or your major or whatever.
Um, how do you push yourself to do something that requires leadership, like starting a club?
So, the process for, I guess, doing something like this, I mean, to be honest, like you just talk with a few of your friends who you think are um like fit, I guess. I mean, fit, I guess is not the right word, but like who are willing and able to do it with you. And then you just take responsibility over like the club and how it works, and yeah, it just goes from there. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like pushing yourself to do it or like motivating yourself to like make it good, at least for me when it comes to like leading clubs or when it comes to like starting clubs and activities and stuff, the at least for me the easiest way is to think of it as like a favor for the people who are actually in the club. So to to try to ask yourself, how can you make this activity, you know, a worthwhile use of the time of the people who sign up for your club. And I think if you, um, at least if you tend to be motivated by like making other people happy, this will convince you to put in like an adequate amount of time and thoughtfulness into how you're constructing whatever it is that you intend to start.
Definitely good advice. I can also add on about like pushing out of your comfort zone is something that's like really important to do. Like say for instance, like you want to do a webinar or something like how Larry and Sidhant have. If you want to express your ideas to the rest of the world, just go for it. Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Next question is, can you share what enrichment classes you've attended?
So in terms of like classes outside of school to um get better at math or physics or CS, there's not really much unless you like of course consider like training classes to be enrichment classes. Then I have taken a couple courses in Office Star before. But besides that, I haven't really gone to any like specific like enrichment classes to get better at a specific part of math or to learn a new aspect of math that I didn't know before, like linear algebra or something. I think in that sense, Basis is actually doing a really good job in allowing you to take classes like linear algebra, like differential equations, like game theory, like where you're able to learn all of these new things and you don't have to go to a community college for the same classes. So, in that sense, Basis is doing a really good job with their math curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have very little experience with like these kinds of classes that I hear a lot of people who do competitions take. In general, I've mostly also just like gone to my basis classes, paid attention, learned the things, and then uh, basis classes are far from perfect, surely, but they are pretty decent starting points for like, you know, what topics you can get into knowing, and then you can go, find a textbook on your own. Uh, I watched a lot of YouTube in terms of simultaneously decompressing and being productive. My YouTube recommendations are full of math videos, so um, I think just if you're motivated enough, you can definitely do without these enrichment courses. But like I said at the beginning, these enrichment courses I think are useful if you need a little bit of additional motivation to like really get into a topic.
What electives would you recommend middle school and high schoolers to take, assuming they were pursuing STEM as a career choice?
Um, This is also a little bit difficult. I think you should definitely try to challenge yourself a little bit with your elective choices. So, for example, taking maybe one or two APs. Um, you should also use your electives to satisfy your graduation requirements. Like if you don't have an outside art credit, then you should definitely satisfy your art credit with your electives. And if you don't have outside PE credit, you should also definitely try to satisfy PE credit. Um, but in general, trying to challenge yourself with things like uh, I don't know, like AP Econ or like AP Statistics or stuff like that, where you can challenge yourself to or AP Seminar, like these classes that are slightly more difficult and put you slightly more outside of your comfort zone, but they have a lot of value to take them and to learn stuff from them.
Um, yeah, I think there are definitely, I think electives are a pretty decent place at basis to like expand beyond your what you typically study. I think the core curriculum at basis of science and math is like pretty solid in terms of foundations, and I think the electives are a good way to explore like other things that you might be interested in. I think like if you want like specific examples, I think AP Econ is a pretty strong elective. Um, I think organic chemistry is a pretty strong elective. Um, I think things like an AP Environmental Science are also good because they're both not too challenging. They're not going to take away a whole lot from like your either your extracurriculars or your core classes, but they're a good exposure to things beyond the basic foundations and fundamentals. I would basically just take electives that look both rigorous and interesting.
What is your plan for this summer?
So, I don't actually have a good plan for my summer yet, which you should probably have a better idea of what you're going to do than I do. But I guess a lot of my summer kind of comes down to like what happens in the coming weeks and whether I am able to attend like IOI or stuff. So I don't actually know the answer to that question at the current moment. Yeah.
I also don't have a terribly good idea what I'm gonna do. I will say in general, I usually had a better idea like within high school, like in junior or sophomore year. I know that I will probably be a returner to a math camp that I went to in a previous year. But this is only a few weeks. I don't have concrete plans for the entirety of summer. I hope to perhaps maybe be a teaching assistant at a local community college or something like this, but I have nothing set in stone.
When you get stuck by a very difficult math or CS problem, how would you deal with it?
Okay, so typically, I guess one of the practice patterns that I've developed over time is that especially for CS where the problems tend to be a little lengthier and take a bit more time and it's easier to get frustrated on them as well. It's that you should probably spend about uh 30-ish minutes on the problem, just thinking about the problem. If you're not able to think of a solution by that time, then look at any solutions that you can find online um, for the problem. And if you are able to, then try to make that solution into a reality and try to actually bash out the like or write out the code and everything. Um, for math, I mean, I guess it's kind of similar, although the problems are slightly shorter. So in essence, it's not a lot about like for example, in a test, if you had a really hard problem, you would just skip it after some time. And I guess in practice, it's kind of similar where you'll spend a little more time on it than you would in a test, but you would still skip it or try to see what the solution is after you're stuck on it for enough time without making progress.
Yeah, I mean, it. I guess there's two primary reasons why you would be stuck.
Do you play any sport?
Um, okay, so I do play soccer, or I used to play soccer. Um, I played for like, so we had three 1.5 hour practices every week, and I would usually go to between two and three every week. and we would have a game on the weekend that was usually about 2 hours. And generally for sports, you're not really doing it. I mean, you are doing it to, have fun and be competitive and, try to be the best that you can. But at least for me, a lot of it wasn't about, oh, I need to get something out of it. Um, I need to become a certain rank and need to win a certain trophy or anything like that. It was more about like having fun, being competitive, and also like getting exercise and stuff. So yeah.
Sorry, I didn't check my battery. It went to 0%, which is bad. Sorry, what was the last question? Or would you like me to answer the one I got
The,
cut
the
off on?
last question was how much sport do you play?
Oh, um, it depends on what you consider a sport. Chess is an excellent option.
Check.
Um, Science bowl is also an excellent option if you consider it. I did none of what might traditionally be considered sports in high school. But I think in general, finding like an activity that you like that is in some sense competitive in like a more immediate sense than something like Olympiads, it can be a lot of fun. Like, it's a good team building exercise. For me, this was science bowl. But perhaps for you, it's basketball or whatever.
Okay, let's do one last question. Can you share some math YouTubers you like with us?
Okay. So I guess the obvious answer would be Three Blue, One Brown. I think Three Blue, One Brown has like really like high quality videos, and his explanation of those concepts, which aren't like the easiest concepts. Like you'll see a lot of very difficult problems and very advanced concepts on his videos as well. And his explanations of those concepts are very revealing. I guess, they're very good, and they have a lot more insight than just solving the problems. Um, in terms of other YouTubers, I mean, Number File is decent if you want to do Number File. If you want to watch Number File, um, I mean, there are also some other decent ones like Mark Grober and whatnot, Um, but yeah, I would say Three Blue One Brown is just by far the best one.
Yeah, I would agree. Three Blue, One Brown is amazing. As I'm sure everyone here who's heard of it, it has would. Um, but also I think not only are his explanations, very well animated, very well insightful, but the other thing Three Blue One has done really well is he's inspired a lot of other people to make content of similar nature and similar sort of pedagogical value. Um, if you haven't heard of it, I would really recommend looking up the Summer of Math Exposition. You can find like the playlists for the past 3 years on YouTube, and if you go through there, you can find a lot of YouTube channels that only started existing after Three Blue, One Brown, and they're kind of hit or miss. But particularly the ones that got very popular, are from YouTube channels that have now started putting out content very similar to Three Blue, One Brown. So some ones that come to mind are ones called Mathemaniac, who has um, a full set of courses, or full set of animated videos on things like complex analysis. There's More Popular, there's Epsilon Delta. There's a lot of YouTube channels that are now doing very similar stuff to Three Blue, One Brown. So I would say the Summer of Math Exposition is really a treasure trove of math YouTube.
Okay, would you guys like to give any more last closing thoughts?
As far as things like enrichment camps go, Three Blue, One Brown's course on linear algebra was essentially my first enrichment camp. So definitely
Mhm.
worth checking out.
Yes. And I guess if you want a recommendation about like problems you should do, um, we can guarantee that BIMCT problems are very high quality. Not
Yeah, they're
only
prestigious.
for, yes, not only for like math, the math problems are really good, but also the physics and the computer science problems are also really good. So ever have time, you should look into that.
Okay, thank you guys all for coming. Those are the questions we'll be answering today. The meeting recording will be posted on YouTube. And if you thought today's session was very interesting, feel free to join this math interest group. And that's where we'll be posting things for like competitions or other further talks led by math leadership. And also make sure to join the upper school math circle. And thank you so much to Sidhant and Larry for giving all their very useful advice tonight, and hope everyone was able to get a lot out of it.
Bye.
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 Thank you.